Okay, hey guys, hope everybody's having a great weekend and welcome back to the channel. And we're going to get into a quick analysis of what we could expect for this upcoming week in terms of trade setups that we could possibly get into, as well as the overall movement that we got from the market last week. All right, and what could we expect moving forward? All right, and this is something I really like to take a look at. Prepare for the upcoming week now. So we did have a very lackluster but more so strong NFP. If you take a look here at the DXY, just to get straight into it, we can see that the dollar fell pretty heavy, but despite that, we saw some dollar movement that didn't match this bearish tone here, right? And this has to do with the mixed data that we did receive from the NFP news release. So let's just take a look quick at NFP and just scroll down here. All right, so here the NFP, these are the numbers that we had, right? So for NFP, we had from the expected 205k consensus being 311k, right? So a bit higher than what we did expect. However, we did have unemployment rate rising as well, so unemployment went higher than expected, as well as, well, the other average earning, we had average earnings as well. Some news that came out on that too. See, average hourly earnings did come out worse than expected, right here at 4.6% compared to the 4.7% that the consensus was. We did have a lower than expected number. Now, this being said, how does this affect the market? What does this all mean? NFP came out higher, and as we know, during times when we do have a high NFP number, and by this drastic move, 106k more than the expected, usually that would give a boost to the dollar. However, what's on the forefront of everybody's mind is this unemployment rate number, right? This percentage has a lot of meaning behind it for the markets, because what does this mean for the future moving forward from the Fed? What can we expect from the Fed? That's the thing. So if unemployment is high, right, higher than expected, it would mean that we may see the Fed actually coming down to more of a dovish stance on their interest rates increase, and how this does affect them moving forward. That's the thing that markets are paying attention to, and hence why we had this negative move to the downside on the dollar. Okay, now despite that, we did see the dollar come into the supportive zone and this area being held, and we saw this sort of rejection from that area. If you take a look on one of the trades here, AUDUSD, a trade that we did enter, right, we saw this rally before, right before the news did come out, and then we saw this fall again during and after the news event itself, right? So after NFP, we saw this move to the downside come. We were able to get a profit off of it, risking around 3%. Was able to make around 15% on this. Now, with that being said, all right, why did the dollar move bullish here? Okay, and why was that bearish tone at the forefront of everybody's mind? If you take a look at some of the other currency cross pairs, we can see here on Euro USD, price soared to the upside. Take a look at GBPUSD, same movements, but on the risk assets, we did have that, but more of a bearish push coming down to the ending of the trading week. Now, what does this mean? All right, so like I said, this just means that we can expect the Fed to basically have sort of a dovish tone when it comes to their monetary policies moving forward. As we know, interest rates are increasing pretty aggressively to combat the high inflation numbers, and we're seeing the Fed gradually continue increasing rates all the way to an expected 6% interest rate increase, right? That's something that we could see in the foreseeable future. Now, with that being said, unemployment numbers coming out worse than expected, it means that they may take a lighter stance, because as interest rates increase, it will become harder and harder for employed citizens to be able to keep up with that rate hike. That's why we saw those movements. So hopefully that's understandable to you guys. Now, moving into this week, right, what we could expect. Now, I am particularly more fond on AUDUSD and some of the more risk assets, because they give clearer movement. Taking a look here from the daily and just some chart analysis we're going to get into real quick. From the daily time frame, we see a lot of rejection from the upside here, right? So moving into next week, we may get a continuation even lower, I think, in favor of the USD here, just because right now, even though the US dollar is not doing too hot, it doesn't mean that the risk assets are doing hot either, right? It doesn't mean that we should turn our attention towards buying the AUD or the NZD or the GBP itself. So with that being said, I do think we could see a continuation even lower here in favor of the US dollar. If we take a look at some of the news that we have coming up this week, let's just take a look. I already highlighted what I'm paying attention to. We have unemployment rate for the GBP coming up, CPI number expected to be higher. So if the actual does come out as is or even a little bit higher, that would be good for the dollar. And we should see that being a catalyst for dollar continuations. So that's what I'm looking forward to mostly here. If we do get a break to the downside, just a small break out of this zone, I do think we should see those continuations, right? We are in a very strong downtrend. So that is my sort of expectancy to see price continue moving lower. So this would be a possible trade I'll be looking at for if price manages to actually break lower. Then I'm looking for the continuations down into this significant level and even lower if price does show more momentum. Right, so this would be the sort of trade setup I'm looking at to see price possibly do with those CPI numbers coming out. Right, and looking here at the 4-hour and the daily, we could even see price even pushing lower. So these are some of the target areas I'll be looking forward to possibly seeing. Moving further on, I am also interested in the AUDCAD. Both positions on AUDCAD and AUD USD do have similar movements. Here in AUDCAD coming to last week market close, we did have sort of a mixed movement compared to AUD USD just because of the data difference. Moving into this week, however, I do think we should see a continuation, right? In terms of news, we are more USD heavy on news events to come out. We do have some GDP numbers for the NZD as well as AUD unemployment. This being a more significant number here to pay attention to: employment change, new jobs created, and as well as we have the ECB interest rate decision, right? Expected a 50 base point increase. So we'll see how that fares, and then we have CPI again. So a lot of news coming out, right? Nothing really much for the CAD itself, but given what we had from last week data, let's just check it. How we ended last week, we can see we have good CAD numbers. Unemployment rate is lower, employment is higher, employment change is higher, as well as the full-time employment too. So the CAD is doing pretty good in terms of its economic standing. I do think we should continue seeing sort of a bearish move here on AUDCAD in favor of the Canadian dollar, right? So I do think that we could possibly come all the way back down into the supportive level and continue pushing even lower. So for me, as markets open, I would be looking for AUDCAD sells, potential area to possibly get into. I would say if price manages to push past this area here, right? Because on this move upward here, we saw price coming into this resistance, create a sort of a support right here and push higher up, right? We had a rejection here again, which kind of solidifies this supportive area. So if price does manage to push even lower here below this, I think that'll be good for an entry to continue to the downside, right? So a possible trade setup will be once we see a close, a bearish candle close below this area here, we should continue seeing price fall right into this supportive area. So this would be a 1 to 3.5% trade, which I'll be looking forward to possibly seeing. Okay, besides that, I am willing to take it very slow this week. So in terms of trade setups, I do have what I'm looking at: AUDCAD, AUDUSD. I do have some GBPJPY set up. This was a nice trade that we got into here. Just to give you guys a quick look, we got into a buy trade. Price came all the way up here initially. This was our take profit area. Price came into it, targeted for I think 1.5, 1.7, sorry, a 1 to 7, right? So this was a trade setup for us here, and yeah, price played out pretty nicely and it continued pushing even higher. And then we had this fall with the USD news release. we saw the dollar dovishness kick in and the yen kicked in, gaining some strength here. Now moving forward, I do think we may see a correction on this move, just because coming to the ending of a week, especially one with NFP, we do have a lot of significant movement, more so on market fears, as well as just the overall psychology being rather different from what we usually see or expect, right? So this was like an over exaggerated move from, you know, market psychology. So with that being said, I do think we may see a correction here on GBPJPY. Might see the yen weaken a little bit and price recover back up into this level. So for Monday, or at least during market open, I'll take a light risk for price to continue moving higher up here on GBPJPY. Right, I think that's more like the likely scenario to see price come back into this level. Maybe we fall a bit and then we continue higher. I do think that's more of a likely scenario to possibly see, especially since the yen itself is not too attractive right now in terms of their own policies. We did see interest rates being maintained the same, negative 0.1%. So with that being said, if the yen does move stronger, that will be on the back of USD weakness or some other fundamental factor, and where the safe haven pairs would look more attractive. But overall, I do think we may see a correction of this. That's more of a likely scenario. So this is what will be anticipated moving forward for next week. Besides that, nothing much else, right? Again, we would have to be patient, paying attention to the news upcoming. I would be looking to possibly trade during the CPI for the euro, as well as for the AD, the employment changes, right? So we saw that the previous was negative. We have the consensus being positive. If the consensus does come out, the actual number comes out as the consensus or even higher, which it may, then that's great, right? So that with that employment change from that previous negative number, it will be really good to see the actual number being positive. So either way, we would get sort of a bullish move on the AUD itself. So I'm looking more forward to actually seeing that happen. So other than that, not really much, right? We just have to wait and see, because, you know, as the week does start, price may move in one direction, and with the release of all these news events, we may see something else occur. So I'm not going to be making too much predictions on what we could possibly see on price, besides what we do have in terms of the price action, the market psychology from last week Friday market close, as well as the data that we do have already. Everything else we'll just have to wait and see as the new set of news releases does come out, and how does that data impact price action. But yeah, this is me for now, guys. So GBPJPY, looking for this to actually correct itself. I'll be looking to take probably a 2% risk on this. 80 USD, I would be looking to see this fall even further here, as well as 80 CAD, looking to see price continue falling even further here in favor of the US dollar and the Canadian dollar. And as those numbers do sort of level out, and we see price kind of stabilize on the US side, we would see the yen itself overall depreciate from that earlier movement that we had to the downside, right? So that's why I'll be taking that GBPJPY buy rather than looking for sell opportunities. And yeah, that's from the fundamental side. Now, if you want to get technical with it, if we take a look here at daily, we could see that overall we are in a very strong uptrend, kind of, right here. So we saw price was ranging, then we saw price break to the upside, retest at that supportive level created, and now we had another, well, multiple retests from that supportive level. So we may see a continuation even higher, I think. So that's my at least that's my technical standpoint right now, right? So that's it for me, guys. Hopefully you found this informational and educational. You got some knowledge out of it as to why price moved how it did with the US news release, what we could expect seeing moving further on. All right, so thank you guys for watching. I don't really want to take up too much of you guys' time, and as well, we'll be waiting to see what price does moving further on. So with that being said, yeah, that's it. Really do appreciate it. Leave a like if you found it educational, as well as subscribe for future updates, so you'll be notified as to when I do post. and join the Discord group if you have any questions for me, and if you want to be in a community where you'll be able to see my trade setups as well as my thought process with my trades, and communicate with other traders with similar interest as you. All right, guys, so thank you very much. Peace.